Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched. I'm your host, the Social Solipsist, and this week I watched 2018's A Simple Favor. Now, I wanted something a little bit different than the last couple of movies I've watched. I had actually forgotten that this movie was as recent as it is, although, honestly, 2018 feels like a decade ago. But there were a whole bunch of things that I got to thinking about after realizing when this film was released. Because, in no small part due to the director, Paul Feig. Now, some of you may recognize the name, some of you may not. Paul Feig has become infamous, perhaps, after 2016 when he directed the Ghostbusters reboot, which was bad. We don't need to delve into all the details of it. It's been ripped to shreds on the internet. It's not very good. It just didn't work out. There was an idea there and it didn't really work out. But it got me to thinking, all right, Paul Feig, what else have you done? What is the thread in your career, and how has it led you here to A Simple Favor? Well, little did I know the connection that I would make to a film I haven't thought about in 15 years. His first real, he made a small film called I Am David in 2003, and then in 2006 he made Unaccompanied Minors. I don't know if anybody's watched that film. It was a name I recognized, then I saw the cover and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Pretty sure I saw that one in theaters. It's a children's slapstick Christmas film, I guess. It's a kid's film. He made a Christmas kids film. And that really should have told me everything else I needed to know. But to talk about Paul Feig for a little bit, he has a whole history, especially attached to a whole bunch of people who were on or related to SNL. So 2011, he made Bridesmaids, which was, or directed, I should specify here, because it does matter. It does matter to my final point here. He directed and executive produced Bridesmaids. He did not write it. Lots of people are big fans of that film. I don't really care for it, but it's sort of inoffensive. But everything that's good about that film is in the writing and the acting. Not in the production, not in the film, like not in the directorship or anything like that. It's ugly. It's an ugly looking film. And that trend continues because Paul Feig is not a very good director, in my opinion. He would subsequently do The Heat, which kind of Spy, similar sort of thing. That's the first one he actually wrote. He was a writer on. I don't know if he was a primary writer on it, but yeah, could kind of take or leave that one. That was in 2015, and then 2016 he did Ghostbusters. And again, not to delve into all the details of it, but essentially the problem was he's a terrible director. He doesn't really know how to work with a camera. He doesn't really know how to work with actors. And that is really what gets us to this point, which is that he appears to have stumbled through a 15-year career, succeeding on the backs of talented actors who already have on-screen chemistry, and his incompetence just happens to be overshadowed by their talent. I know that sounds like really harsh, but I just don't see anything of his work that's actually valuable. But that said, I did bury the lead on this one. I quite like A Simple Favor. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The problem is that so much of the quality of this film is reliant on the two leads, Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, who put on excellent performances. The chemistry they clearly have is really what holds this film together, both together and apart. So, Paul Feig, you get no points. I'm sorry. The film is not I might as well just sort of skip to the end portion here and say cinematography is pretty blech. There's a couple of shots that are notable, but the rest is very flat, kind of poorly lit and just sort of blech. Doesn't do any favors for the quality of the film. So no points on that. Thankfully, he was not a writer on this. So the fact that this script came from who's the screenplay by Jessica Scharzer. It was with a very short Wikipedia entry, so probably not a whole lot under her belt. But hey, having him not write shit, great. This is apparently adapted from a book. I didn't delve into all the details there, but that's not what we're here for anyway. A Simple Favor is a fascinating film, and as with a lot of films I like, not quite what I expected. I do also, in a similar vein to Thoroughbreds, I remember seeing ads for this, which is unusual for me, for ads to leak into my life. I do, as I've said before, do everything in my power to make sure they never reach my eyes, ears, any of my sensory organs. But I do remember seeing ads for this, and the ads are bad. At least the one I saw. Evidently, I was looking later. There are additional ads they release that are actively worse. They're more traditional in their traileriness, but yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This film is fascinating and expands in ways that you probably wouldn't expect. Structurally, it has a pretty strong sort of 3-act structure, to the point of almost directly overturning the strict ideas of a 3-act structure. But it has very distinctive, points in the film where it evolves. And that is something I really appreciated. It starts with a relatively simple premise, and on a number of occasions, it looks like it's going to take a particularly, I hesitate to say cliched, but, okay. There are a lot of unique and pleasant surprises in terms of the writing and structure of the film and the narrative being told. However, whether deliberate or not, there are a couple of points in the film at which they either fall back to or deliberately push some very tropified scenes. And it's unclear to me whether those are deliberate or not, because they do actually function. I don't want to say they're lampshaded, because they're not. I also don't want to say that they're deliberately put there to subvert the tropes that they're presenting, because there's something to be said for deliberate writing choices in writing something that is then subverted, right? Especially when it comes to typical narrative structures and the types of narrative scenes that happen in certain types of media, whether that's film or book or whatever. These scenes fall somewhere in the middle, which makes me feel like they are accidentally not that good, rather than deliberately put in there to be subverted. They're just not acted upon enough to really feel deliberate. So there's a couple of scenes there that are sort of where I sort of rolled my eyes or went, wait, are we really doing this? And by the end, for the most part, those were forgiven. But they do stick out a little bit like a sore thumb. That said, there's so much to be said for the chemistry between Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. Blake Lively is an actress I really didn't know much about. I actually didn't think I had seen anything with her in it. I had to look her up, basically. If I'm totally honest, and this is going to sound bad, I really only knew her as Ryan Reynolds' wife. She's a very beautiful woman, and I've heard her interviewed before, and she seems quite intelligent. But I thought she was like primarily a model. So I didn't realize that she's had a whole career, mostly in TV. The only thing I've ever seen her in before, and it's a relatively minor role, and it was years ago, was in 2010's The Town, which is a weird movie on its own that I'm not the biggest fan of. But I went back and rewatched a few clips of that to go, oh yeah, she is in there. And she does a very good job in there as far as I can remember as well, or as far as I could see from, quickly reviewing it. So, hey, props to her. But it was a sort of a pleasant surprise because she puts on a great show here. And you can see it from some of the promotional material, but it's immediately apparent. The part of the reason they chose Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively is because of the juxtaposition between the two of them. Obviously, they're both very beautiful women, but in the structure of the movie, they're supposed to be playing somewhat opposites. Anna Kendrick is probably 8 inches shorter than Blake is. She's, she's got very dark brunette hair, whereas Blake's blonde. And they do have a couple of some of the few moments of actually quality cinematography. They use the frame to really accentuate the differences between the two of them. And I think that in combination with these nuanced and not overdone performances that both of them put on towards these reasonably well-written, distinctive characterizations that the two of them have. Obviously, I'm dancing around the content of the film a bit. I'm in these videos, I'm always hesitant because, as I think I've talked about before, spoilers to me are not just in talking about the plot. They're talking about the things like the structure, things like, comparisons to other movies and things like that. And I hesitate to talk about those things because I don't want to incidentally give people expectations or assumptions or have them looking for things, even if they're not plot elements. To me, that's actually probably more egregious than just flatly describing the plot to somebody. But a lot of people's ideas of spoilers are purely in, oh, you spoiled the next event that happens. Anyway, there's neither here nor there. Getting off on a tangent. There's a lot to talk about with this film, but I hesitate to talk about some of it because so much of the value of watching the film is in watching how it unfolds. And the way that it unfolds is imperfect, but it's certainly very interesting. Though what you see in the first act sets you up for certain expectations that are, I don't want to just give it a blanket subverted, but like are really developed upon very substantially in the second and third acts in a way that I think works really well. Weirdly, this film is just short of 2 hours long. It feels substantially longer. And I don't say that in a negative way in this case, because it doesn't feel at all like it overstays its welcome. It mostly feels like it's very jam-packed full of content. That said, that does get me to one of my complaints a bit, which is that as the credits were rolling, I was like, man, I really enjoyed that. Did I really enjoy that? Hold on. And one of the problems is that it is so jam-packed full of content and full of different plot threads that it forgets a whole bunch of them. Frankly, I forgot them too. I had to sit there at the credits and think about, hold on, did they clear these things up? Were they just there for, a red herring or a narrative plot beat or whatever? Was it just to, push the story forward? And there's a few too many cases where it was just sort of didn't feed directly into the the content and wasn't brought to a true closure. That it was it sort of made the whole thing feel a little bit more messy in retrospect. But that said, I still think it holds up very well. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I really liked a lot of what was presented here. Now, there is a comparison I want to make, but it's going to potentially substantially it's a comparison to another film. So if I tell you which film I'm comparing it to, it's probably going to spoil elements of this movie. So maybe pause the video. If you're going to watch it, I really like this film. I would recommend it despite its shortcomings. So maybe cut here and come back to it later. That said, leave a comment, please. Let me know what you think. If you are doing this, does anybody watch this shit? Let me know if you'd like me to not have blatant cuts in the video and just say come back, if you'd like me just to go ahead and be free with the spoilers, because I can do either. Depends what people want. So anyway, cut here. All right, so I have to draw the comparison to Gone Girl. If you're in this portion of the video and you didn't watch the film, that may come as a surprise. Or maybe it doesn't at all. I don't know. I had sort of forgotten, this is the other element having to do with the time that it was released. I had forgotten that Gone Girl was all the way back in 2014 and this was all the way forward in 2018. Likewise, the books that both films are based on are also in that order. So the Gone Girl book was in 2012, and I think the book for this was 2016. Anyway, point is, there's some elements that seem pretty... I don't want to say ripped off or plagiarized or anything like that, because obviously, structurally, they're very different films, and the outcomes are substantially different. I would argue that this is a much more satisfying, if cheesy and tropified ending. It goes so far as to do the give one of the characters a Regina George right at the end, because why not? I guess. Um, uh, but there's something to be said for, um, you know, looking at another take on a similar presence, because there's substantial differences. Obviously, Gone Girl is a very sort of dark mystery thriller type of thing, very sinister and sort of horrifying in a lot of ways. Whereas a similar sort of story, it's not that close, but having some of the same tropes played into it, but subverted in different ways, and that the tone and framing of the film are so distinct and oriented more towards this sort of idea of black comedy, really shows all the difference in the world. That said, it also shows all the difference in the world between one of the great masters of the modern master directors of the modern era versus Paul Feig. Because I have mixed feelings on Gone Girl, but why can't I remember his name? What's his name? David Fincher. God, I always struggle to remember his name, even though I love his directing style. Anyway, Fincher is a master manipulator of the camera. Feig shouldn't be allowed near a camera legally. But that said, I think if you said I have to watch one of these films again, I'd probably watch I'd probably watch A Simple Favor again rather than Gone Girl for a variety of reasons. So yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's to bring it back around to Noel. Nobody's coming back if they've already dropped off of the film to go watch it, or maybe they did. Anyway, nobody's coming back jumping over over that section. But anyway, there's a lot to like here. I really appreciate the acting and the writing and the delivery of a variety of different aspects. I appreciate the sort of nuance that it was able to, the balance it was able to strike in the tone to keep it both, somewhat genuinely mysterious while still dark and also still very humorous. There are some great side characters. Oh, I forgot. As far as like minor characters, minor actors go, just particular shout out to Aparna Nancherla, who is a comedian I like very much. I think she has a few other minor acting credits, but I don't know. She's in the film. I like her. Anyway, yeah. I really like this film. I think it's definitely worth the, bit under 2 hours. You could certainly waste 2 hours on much worse things like fucking Ghostbusters. God, what a joke. All right. Anyway, thank you guys for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched. I've been the Social Solipsist. Leave your comments. Let me know what you thought. I'll see you guys next time.